Let me start by saying that what happened yesterday, um, is a great thing, because in this country there's been a narrative that I've always myself found opportunistic and historical. The narrative that the two factions, that the two ruling class factions, within them, there is one that is a lesser evil. There are people, academics, politicians and others who basically advance this narrative whenever there are elections. That of the two factions, let's choose the lesser evil. And I think it's unacceptable, because if who chooses between evil? It's nobody chooses, between evil. And what happened yesterday is what we have been saying all along, that these two factions and their political parties are basically birds of the same political feather. Okay, and they come together when their class is is challenged, and that's what has happened. So I hope going forward, this narrative that sees the various factions, and these factions are grounded on monetization and ethnicity. That's how they organize politics, and they also share these values. Well, they are not values, evils of corruption, stealing resources, wasting resources, and we're talking about a dictatorship that is going to be 61 years old in December. Okay? And I think you remember there was a time when Moi said that, well, Kanu will rule you for 100 years. They have already ruled us for 61. The people who you saw meeting yesterday, they are all orphans, of the Kanu dictatorship. There's not a single one of them, that can claim that they are not part of that 61-year-old, dictatorship. So, Hillary was right when he talked. I don't know whether it's Hillary or somebody else. I guess it was Kingston, when he talks of self-preservation and survival. Okay? Those are great words about classes, that they come together for self-preservation and survival. So that's important to know. And the other thing that made me very, very happy was the demand by the Gen Z that they were going to occupy World Bank and IMF. Because in terms of politics, you have to connect the foreign interest with the people who rule us, okay? And analyze very, very clearly why our leaders, or these two factions, are enslaved by foreign interests, and why they take, orders from foreign interests, and they've never participated in any public participation. Okay, look at the case of Haiti. Okay, we were not consulted. Look at the case of Palestine. We were not consulted. When the courts say that police officers can be deployed in Haiti, it's unconstitutional. That particular court order is disobeyed. And in my books, if you are going to talk about the rule of law, then any government that subverts the rule of law is illegitimate. Uh, so it's very, very, very important that, as Miguna says, as a people demonstrate, as mass action goes on, it's very, very, very important to make, that connection, because that connection is important. In my view. So the other thing, and this is now talking to the. Before I do that, let me talk about task forces, and I give some history. I'm not going to give it the way Miguna has brilliantly given it in terms of dates and so forth, because I haven't done that work. And thanks Miguna for articulating these popular revolutions and uprisings. So when it comes to task force in this country, there's a history of destructing, movements through the formation of task forces. Okay, and I'll give you examples of a few. When J.M. Kariuki was killed, March 2nd, I think that's when his body was discovered, 1975. The system very quickly set up a parliamentary commission that was headed by somebody called Mwangale, Elijah Mwangale, who was, I think, MP for where Mukiza Kitui was MP. I don't know what that constituency is called. And it's what that parliamentary commission did was to really diffuse the tensions. Diffuse the tensions, because people were very angry about JM's murder. The universities took to the streets, and so to diffuse, that particular popular unrest, this commission was quickly formed. When it's reported, nothing was done. Even the parliament tried to change some of the findings, and nothing was done. Then in 91, I think, after the ethnic clashes in Rift Valley, there was a Kiwumi commission. A lot of time taken there. People having this hope that there was going to be a solution. Those involved were going to be prosecuted and jailed. Nothing happened. Okay, Ouko. Robert Ouko was killed, I believe, 1990. There was what was called the Troon Commission. They brought this British guy from Scotland Yard, to deal with, to do the investigations. And then there was a commission chaired by the late Chief Justice Kisheru. Richard Kwach was in that commission as well. And it was a board, commission actually, and the Moi saw exactly where that commission was headed, and it is bandaged. And those who are suspected of Ouko's murder were arrested. They were never charged, and there were no prosecutions. I think a lot of the millennials will remember the Work Commission, or even the Gen Z. I think this is 2007, after that election. There was the work commission, okay, and when you look at all those commissions, this the common denominator, in my view, is that they were used to diffuse popular uprisings, you know, to 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 make sure that the public anger, you know, dissipated, and that will be it. And they use these task forces, you know, like the Uko thing. If those of you remember, Uko was supposed to have shot himself in the leg and doused himself with acid and burned himself. That was basically the theory that the government, advanced. So task forces, commissions of inquiry, whenever there are issues, and Miguna made this point, you know, who appoints them, you know? It's the culprits, the people that we suspect are the criminals between what has happened, okay? So it's we should, reject them. The other thing that is historical, in terms of demonstrations and mass action over years, is the fact that the criminal elements, people have talked about goons, they've talked about criminals. What we have known all along is that within the police force, there is always a criminal gang. And that gang invariably is reports to the president and not to their superiors. And they have been dangerous. You know, those of you who are of my generation will remember the famous Gorokos. You know, they were supposed to be taking care of the cattle wrestling, yes. In certain areas, they didn't do that. In fact, they spent a lot of time in the 70s trying to intimidate President Moi to resign, and they were involved in what was called the Change the Constitution movement during that period, so that President Moi would not automatically succeed Jomo Kenyatta in the event he died in office. And the others, you know, you must have heard of Kwekwe, you know, the flying squad. And even the current one, I think, is called Rhino. They have, names. And the politicians themselves have militia, okay? You must have heard of Raila's Men in Black, okay? You must have heard, or you might not have, but a lot of people of my generation would know that in 1997, Ngumo had a militia called Jesh la Mzee that terrorized us during the mass action during that period. So when the president talks about criminals and the gangs, is not telling the truth. And I honestly, I don't think if he tells the truth, it must be by accident, and even that one, I wouldn't believe it. So the gangs and the Gen Z have seen this clearly, that these people join the demonstrations and they do stuff, and the police seem to protect them, and so the of course they are deployed to completely make people angry against the peaceful demonstrators, because they'll say, "Oh, these people are destroying property, they are stealing and so forth." And it's wrong for us to accept that dialogue or that argument, because a government that cannot protect property and lives actually is illegitimate. And that's a legal position as well, a political as well as a political one. If you are in government and you cannot support, protect lives and the property of the citizens, then you are illegitimate. And there is a lot of evidence that we have seen where the police, watch as people, commit crimes. So this narrative about gangs and whatnot, okay, if the state was actually protecting the demonstrators from the gangs and making sure that the gangs don't steal or destroy property, then I'll be persuaded. But they are the ones who resurrect them, because those gangs are always, there. I mean, we've all known about Mungiki, for example, all right? So that narrative should not actually, be accepted. But I just wanted to finish by, celebrating the Gen Z for expressing, their anger, protesting, this uprising or this revolution. And I look at it also as a generation that is also telling the government that they have to respect constitutions, they have to respect the rule of law, that they have to respect the human rights of Kenyans. And they are talking about the material interests of the youth and the Kenyans. And that's politics of issues for me. And I think it's very, very important. And I think it should be, continued. The Gen Z will have to decide, and I'm sure probably they have already decided, because I know they have political parties and social movements, that particular generation. So basically, we don't need to, to advise you. It's your movement. We glorify it for the reasons that I've given. Go ahead and decide on your political and ideological positions. Make sure you continue, making your political demands, and watch out for politics of division through ethnicity. The factions you are dealing with. Be very good at organizing politics on the basis of ethnicity and the monetization, and also they know they have the backing of foreign interests. So those are some of the things you have to, to watch out. Watch out that narrative. People coming to say, "Oh well, just work with this faction." The dialogue we are being invited to is a monologue, but to obviously expose you to either manipulation or bribes or whatever. So I think I salute, your, mass action. And I just wanted to finish. Kachoka asked me to comment on Article 241 of the Constitution, that is the deployment of the military under that particular section, article, the paragraph. I think that, in fact, the paragraphs, they use the wrong paragraph, all right, okay, because and even the ones they try to use, we didn't have an emergency or disaster, okay. in the country. Constitutional mass action under 37, Article 37 of the Constitution cannot be called an emergency or a disaster. Nor can it, the other C that, paragraph C that Gashoka was talking about Parliament, giving approval, it also says that the military may be deployed to restore peace in any part of Kenya affected by unrest or instability, but only with the approval of the National Assembly. I don't agree that the mass action that were constitutional and that invoked the Constitution and the rule of law can be described as unrest or even instability. I think this one is like when you have some areas, and I think you have some areas in the Rift Valley where there are such deployments. But what was happening, in the last few weeks was not unrest or instability. It was peaceful. It was young people expressing their anger constitutionally, exercising their freedom of expression, assembly, movement. So, in my opinion, what we are being prepared for is a declaration of state of emergency, which is under 58, Article 58 of the, of the 58 of the Constitution. And that, when you look at that, provision, I think it's 58. Yes, it is. When you look at that, article of the Constitution, you will find, it's called state of emergency. You will find that the person who does it, okay, it's the president, okay, who declares it, that state of emergency, and of course it lasts for 14 days. Then it can be extended by Parliament for 2 months, and also it's subjected to